Hey there, Jake here from CVP, and welcome to our January 2025 edition of Quick Kit. Grab a drink and get comfy, as this covers December and January, so it's a bit of a long one. And as always, links to everything we mentioned will be down in the description below. Let's get into it. First off, Atomos have released new firmware for the Shinobi 2, which adds touch-to-focus support for a range of new cameras. This includes the Canon R1, R7 and R5 Mark II, the Nikon Z9, and the Sony FX3 and FX30. Seeing support for these cameras now is really good, and it's especially great to see the FX3 and FX30 be added. This makes the Shinobi 2 a really great option for all of these cameras now if you want to use a nice, bright and clear monitor when you're shooting video. The touch to focus is such a great addition, and Atomos have done a really good job of updating the Shinobi 2 since it was announced. When the monitor was announced, so many people asked for touch autofocus, so all of these new updates should make this monitor even more popular now. They have also added camera control for a few of Fujifilm's cameras and support for f-log2 and HDR conversions, as well as a few other small bug fixes. They also released Atomos 11.13 for a range of their monitor recorders, which adds support for raw output possible with the Canon C80 and R1. All of these new firmwares are available to download now via the links in the description. Nikon has released firmware 5.1 for the Z9. This adds a range of things which are aimed at more video-focused shooters. First off, you can now use shutter angle instead of speed, which is great to see and will make shooting video and keeping your motion blur consistent much easier. You can also now customize the waveform much more. It now has options for new positions and opacity. Next, you can now change the color of your zebras, which could be helpful in different environments or scenes. They have also added a new function to combine both the power and high-res zoom for greater zoom ranges. This will work with their upcoming 28-135, which I'm excited to check out as well. This new firmware is a clear indication that Nikon wants their cameras to be used for video more, and I'm excited to see what comes next from them with their acquisition of Red. Noxon, who have made a range of camera movement products, announced the Noxon Arm, their new robotic arm system, which looks really interesting given its low price compared to some of the other robotic arms on the market. The pre-order, which is now sold out, was priced at just €5,600, but the price after the pre-order is going to be just under €7,000 for the kit. Honestly, that price is still insane for what this looks to be. There is currently only a 3D render video on their website and some prototype testing on their YouTube, but I'm excited to see some more from them and what this arm can really do. It is rated to hold camera payloads up to 6 kilograms, the arm itself weighs roughly 30 kilograms, and can do repeat moves. If you want to learn more about it, check their website out and let us know what you think of it in the comments below. I'm really excited for this type of technology to become more accessible and affordable, as currently all of the solutions like this are incredibly expensive. And personally, I can't wait to get one in our studio. Canon have released a range of firmware for their video-focused cameras. This even includes some of their newer camera systems, such as the C80 and the C400. There's some really great updates here, especially for the R5C, which has some really great additions. Here's a full list of each update, and links to them all are down below. Canon has done such a fantastic job of updating their cameras and really getting the absolute most out of them during their life. The R5C and C70 are completely different cameras now compared to when they were originally released. So hopefully we see cameras like the C80 and C400 get the same treatment. Next, they announced a brand new lens, the RF 16-28mm f2.8 IS SCM. This is aimed at being a smaller, lighter and lower cost f2.8 RF mount zoom for people not wanting or being able to spend the extra cash for the L series equivalent. It's the second lens in this series, with the first being the 28-70 f2.8, which was released last year. It's going to cost just under £1,250, which when compared to the L series equivalent is substantially less. But of course, there will be compromises optically and mechanically that allow them to charge so much less. For RF mount users, this could be a really good option for lighter configurations or budget conscious users. We want to get it in to check it out at some point, so let us know if you have any questions about it in the comments below. And lastly, they announced that certain SanDisk SD cards can result in corrupt data when used with the R5 Mark II. So if you're an R5 Mark II user, don't use these cards. ARRI has released a few new things. First off, and probably their largest announcement, has to be the Alexa 265, their latest 65mm digital camera system. It uses a similar body design to the Alexa 35, which means that it's much smaller and far lighter than the original Alexa 65, and features a revised sensor that has improved dynamic range, double the sensitivity over the previous 65, and the improved reveal color science introduced with the Alexa 35. It will have a comprehensive range of accessories, including a built-in filter system, which will allow for the use of single-stop FSND filters, but also other filters like diffusion and creative. These will have electronic pass-through for metadata as well. Unfortunately though, it's rental only, but I really hope I get a chance to shoot and test with one of these someday. Up next, they announced the Alexa 35 base license model. This is aimed at making the 35 more accessible, and with a list price of just under €50,000 compared to the €74,500 of the premium or original model, it's a good chunk less. So how have ARRI achieved this? Well, it actually has the exact same hardware as the original 35, but with a new blue jog wheel, which indicates it's the base license version of the camera. Where the camera is limited is in its software and features, and this is how ARRI is cutting so much of the cost out of the camera. These are the core things removed from the camera. First off, you have a max frame rate of 60, whereas the premium license can go up to 120. The base model can only shoot in ProRes, whereas the premium can shoot ProRes and uncompressed ARRI RAW. The base model's formats will be limited to 16:9 and 2:1 spherical formats, whereas the premium model has a bunch of OpenGate and anamorphic formats as well. The base will also not have a pre-record function and restricted look features like ARRI textures and custom color management. If you want to use these features, you can buy them as a permanent or temporary license. And if you decide to buy all the licenses to turn your base into a premium model, it will work out to be around the same cost as buying the Alexa 35 Premium outright. Here's a breakdown of all the different costs and licenses. With this, they also released a newer, lower cost codecs drive. This will work with both the Alexa 35 cameras, but is limited to ProRes recording only. You can tell these drives apart by the white ring that surrounds them. For some end users and productions that don't require all the features of the original 35, this could make the 35 more appealing, as not only has it made its price much less, but it should mean that it rents for less as well, which should make it more accessible overall. ARRI also announced the Atomos 2 Live, a revised version of the Atomos stabilizer system, which has been redesigned for more live production environments like sports and event broadcasts. ARRI have made a really great tech talk video which details the key differences, so if you want to learn more, check that out. Up next, they released SUP 2.2.0 for the Alexa 35, which brings a range of changes. This includes support for the Enzo primes and their vintage elements, including dart compensation, which is really good to see. To see the full release notes, check out the full details on ARRI's website. Lastly, they announced a handle extension set for the Alexa 35, which allows you to change the form of the handle quite a bit. In some quite sad news, Cooke have discontinued their now legendary S4i cinema lenses, with production ceasing this month. The S4s have been a staple set of lenses since their introduction back in 1998, being used on countless features, TV series and commercials throughout the years. We've actually done a little history video all about the S4s, which I've linked in the description if you want to learn more about what makes these lenses so special. There will be plenty of used sets out there in the market, and with them being so great to service, I'm sure they'll be available to rent and use for years to come. We actually have some in our used stock at the moment, which our brilliant in-house lens engineers have serviced and evaluated themselves. Links to those are in the description if you're interested. Sony has announced the upcoming version 2 firmware for the Burano. This will include a range of new recording formats, including a full-frame 3.8K 16:9 mode and a Super 35 4.3K 4:3 and 1.9K 16:9 mode, though these are limited to certain codecs. It will also add a 1.8x in-camera D-squeeze and improved slow and quick recording options. There will also be a range of improved monitoring, SDI, metadata and image output updates, and more beyond this as well. The firmware should be released in March, and if you want to see the full details, check out the list on Sony's website. Earlier this month, CES 2025 happened over in Vegas, and it looks like there were some really interesting announcements and updates, and some of them caught our eye. First off was Lenovo's ThinkBook laptop, which features a rollable OLED screen that looks like a regular laptop when you're traveling around with it, and then you can pull it out and extend the display when you need the extra real estate while working. It's a really interesting window into the future of rollable screens and how they could be implemented into future products. At the event, the new HDMI 2.2 standard was announced as well, and it now has a massive 96 gigabits per second bandwidth, which will be able to handle some serious resolution and frame rates. Next, LG announced the ultra-fine 32U990A, their new 6K Thunderbolt 5 IPS display. It looks really nice, and I'm sure it will be a nice pairing with compatible Thunderbolt 5 Max. Nvidia announced a bunch including their latest 50 series GPUs. This new line will consist of 4 cards at launch and does look like it should be a decent improvement over the previous generation of cards, though they have focused pretty heavily here on AI processing for improved performance. For video editors and colorists, the addition of 422 MVENC decoding and encoding should be a serious improvement over the previous generation of cards. Lastly, Xreal, who specialise in wearable displays, showed off their new Xreal 1, which they showcased at the show. I'm really intrigued to see if these types of solutions are going to be used in filmmaking at some point. Whether that's for general monitoring, distribution, or even focus pulling, I'm super intrigued to see how these could slide into different workflows. Let us know what you think in the comments. Could you see yourself using some kind of AI solution in your workflow? If you've been online at all, you may have seen the Nexus G1 making the rounds, and in their latest announcement video, they have detailed more about the camera and its pending release. This camera is built around Blackmagic's Pocket 6K, which uses a Super 35 6K sensor, but it has been reworked slightly into a more focused body design, which looks incredibly well thought out and featured. It has a custom OLPF and bespoke calling system, but looks to ultimately use the same imaging pipeline and B-roll as the Pocket 6K. It has an interchangeable lens system which can go between EF, PL, mirrorless mounts, and even includes a speed booster option as well. There is also an electronic ND module which will have an auto mode and can be controlled through the camera. It has an optional 4-inch 1600 nit monitor that can be repositioned, a range of physical controls on the body, and a grip for further control. It looks to have a really good range of power, audio, and visual inputs and outputs, which you can actually customize depending on what you need. It has a range of recording media options, mounting points all over the body, and even has a redundant NPF battery slot so you can swap batteries on the mini V-lock plate at the back to keep the camera constantly powered. It even has the ability to feed a fizz system into the camera, which would be good for powering, communication, and control. I'm really intrigued to get this camera in hand, as on paper it looks like a really well thought out design. Let us know what you think about it in the comments below. Earlier this month, DZOFilm announced their X-TRact 18-28mm T8 probe zoom lens. We looked at this in a previous video, so if you want to learn more, check that out. But long story short, the zoom is what makes this unique. The ability to zoom, while only 10mm, does allow you to reframe quickly and perform some interesting slow zooms in conventional probe setups. This is the key differential between the X-TRact and the other options on the market, while still delivering a good probe lens experience. It will be available in 3 different versions: the direct view, which is the regular one we have of us here, the 90-degree view, and the periscope, which will be coming out soon. You can also rotate the lens with the gear at the rear, which even has rotation degree markings. Optically, it does perform very well, especially in regards to breathing and chromatic aberration. It's available to pre-order now on our website, and if you want to learn more, check out the full video. Links to both are in the description. The day that DZO announced this, Laowa announced their upcoming probe zoom lens. This lens looks to be 15mm at the wide end and has a 2.3x zoom range, which works out to be roughly 35mm. It will also be available in 3 different versions: the direct, periscope, and 25-degree tilt, and should be coming out in Q2 of this year. Laowa also announced their new range of nanomorph LF 1.5x anamorphic primes, which at release will consist of a 32, 42, 55 and 85mm, all of which are T2.9, and have a rated image circle of 44.71mm. Considering their squeeze and image circle, these look decently compact, and are available in a range of flare colours and mounts, including PL, EF and mirrorless mounts. The images I've seen from them look very nice, especially considering their just over £1,500 price tag. It's crazy how far affordable anamorphic has come, and I'm excited to get a set of these in to test. Up next, they announced 2 new tilt-shift macro lenses, a 55mm and 100mm, both of which are f2.8, have a 1:1 magnification ratio, and a plus or minus 10 degrees of tilt and 12mm of shift. They can both cover medium format, which means that they're available in E, Z, RF, L and Fujifilm G mount. At just under £1,300, I'm sure photographers and filmmakers wanting to harness the creative options that tilt shift can offer will give these a look. And lastly, they announced a 15mm f5 Cooke lens designed to cover full frame. This will be available with electronic pass-through in E and Z mount, and as a manual variant in RF, M and L mount. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and if you want to buy anything you see in this video, or any other filmmaking or photography gear, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. Panasonic has been pretty busy, starting with the announcement of their TZ9. their latest point and shoot camera, which are honestly quite rare to find nowadays. Next they announced the G97, their latest MFT camera, which is a slight refresh of the G90. Next you have 4 new camcorders, the AG-CX20 and 18 and the HC-X1600 and 1200. While these cameras do share quite a bit, there are key differences between them, which Panasonic have detailed on their webpage covering it all. The main improvements over the previous cameras are mainly around connectivity and live production, which is smart as I think camcorders work great in that space. All of these are available to pre-order now on our website. Next they announced the new AW-UE150W AK 4K PTZ camera, a successor to the popular UE150. It features a 1-inch sensor with an optical low-pass filter, supports 4K up to 60 frames per second, has a 20x optical zoom, and has a built-in auto tracking mode with enhanced pan, tilt and zoom synchronization. It also has a good array of outputs including 12G SDI, has support for the NDI high bandwidth protocol, as well as SRT and NDI HX2 support, and it will be available to pre-order soon. Lastly, they announced new firmware for the S5 II, S5 IIX, GH7 and G9 II mirrorless cameras. These new firmwares all share a bunch, including expanded support of the Lumix Lab app, which includes remote shooting and control, MP4 Lite, the ability to use multiple frame markers, and the G9 II and S5 IIs offer a new hybrid zoom and crop zoom feature. The S5 II and S5 IIX have also seen an update to its general autofocus system, as well as more specific and new enhanced subject tracking modes, with a few new subjects being added. They have also updated a range of their lenses with new firmware as well. Links to all of this is in the description. SmallRig has announced a bunch of new products. First off, we have their new Hawk Lock shoulder rig, which looks like it has some really nice new components to it. The new handles and arms look quite nice. It looks like a really versatile system, and as always with SmallRig, it will be well priced for what it is. They've also brought out a range of new card readers, but the ones that have caught my eye were the 9-in-1s, that either feature a Safer Express Type B or A slot. These readers use a single USB-C 3.2 Gen 2, which is capable of 10 gigabits per second, and gives you a really good range of ports, including a Safer Express, SD and microSD, HDMI, Ethernet and a range of USBs. It's good to see one of these multi-port adapters using CF Express, as often they are limited to just SD. With how many different cameras use CF Express now, these could be a really good option if you want something a little bit more versatile than just a dedicated reader. Next they released the AD01S tripod, an upgraded version of their popular AD01 system. It's a little bit more expensive at just under £200, but the big improvement for it is that it has a fixed counterbalance system rated for 4 kilograms, whereas the AD01 does not. However, the AD01 has a larger maximum capacity of 8 kilograms, whereas this new one is limited to 6 kilograms. It also has a better tilt range and packs down to be a touch smaller and can reach a slightly higher maximum height. But other than that, they seem to be very similar from what I can see comparing their spec sheets. The AD01 has become incredibly popular because of how well priced it is. So let us know if you think we should have a look at this new one as well in the comments below. Next you have their new rotating side handle for a range of cameras. It has a nice record button, which with the correct cable can trigger your camera. Though with Canon and Blackmagic cameras, you'll have to use an NPF battery which slides into the handle. This battery can also be used to power accessories or your camera using the USB port on the side of the handle, and this supports PD charging for compatible devices. The quick rotating design looks nice, so this could be a good option for people wanting a grip for a more comfortable shooting experience. They also announced a new cage system for the Pocket 3 and a range of filters for it, which could help make it a bit better for shooting for some people or productions. This could be great if you need to rig the Pocket 3 in a certain way, and filters are obviously great to help control your shutter speed as there's no ND built into the camera. Up next they announced their new range of accessories for the BURANO. This is a full kit including a cage, top handle and monitor mount system, and the kit is only priced at around $700, which is pretty good. They also announced cages for the Alpha 1 II and A9 III and the Canon R5 II. Lastly, they announced the follow focus handle kit for DJI gimbals. This is aimed to change the form factor of the Ronin slightly and allow for control of the gimbal via the extra handle. Back at IBC, Zcam showed off their new E2 Mark II series, but earlier this month they finally announced full details for it. This new range will consist of the F6 Mark II, S6 Mark II and M4 Mark II. These new cameras use the same sensors present in the original cameras, but puts them inside an updated body design. This looks similar to their Pro series but with some things missing. These new bodies feature native V-mount support for power, a PoE plus Ethernet port, Genlock, timecode, and a 3G SDI output, 9 custom function buttons, and just an updated body design generally. They also have a built-in gyro sensor, use CF Express Type B instead of CFast 2, and will be available in a range of mounts. They're going to be a bit more expensive than the original versions, but not quite as much as the F6 Pro. Let us know what you think of these new cameras in the comments. Blackmagic have been pretty busy with a bunch of new things. First off, they announced a permanent price drop for the Pocket 4K down to just under £900. Even so many years after its release, the Pocket 4K is still a brilliant entry-level video and cinema focused camera. Next, the Cine Immersive, which they announced last year, is now available to pre-order with delivery stated to start early this year. It looks like a really interesting camera that I'm sure is going to get used to capture some really immersive content for the Apple Vision Pro. Talking about Cine, the 12K is now Netflix approved, which is great to see. If you haven't seen our massive review of that incredible camera, check it out, links below. They also released camera update 9.1.3 for the 12K, which fixed some PL mount lens iris issues, and 9.2.1 for the Pixis cameras and Micro Studio Camera 4K G2. The Pixis update is definitely a good one. Both are available to download now on Blackmagic's site. They also released update 8.5 for their HyperDeck system, iOS camera update 2.2, update 9.6.3 for their Atomos systems, and lastly Resolve 19.1.2. Links to all of this are in the description below. During the editing of this video, Blackmagic announced something pretty massive: the addition of a new lower cost entry into the Cine 12K LF line. This is a body only option and it's priced at just over £7,000 including VAT, which honestly is insane considering the amount of camera you get. Out of the box it comes fitted with a locking EF mount, but you can get a PL or LPL mount as an optional extra. Instead of the 8TB medium module that was included with the other versions of the camera, it comes with the CF Express Type B module. However, you can get the 8TB medium module separately if you want to. Here's a highlighted list of all the accessories it doesn't come with. One big thing missing here is a battery plate, so make sure to grab one if you end up buying one. There are no restrictions with this camera at all. It has all the same excellent features as the regular packages, just with all of the accessories removed apart from what we've mentioned. This means that you can easily add on all the bits that are missing and build your own kit up if you have existing accessories or other bits that you want to use, and this can actually work out being much cheaper. It's available to order now on our website, and I think it could be very popular as you get so much camera for your money now. DJI have announced their latest drone, the Flip. This new drone kind of looks like DJI combined the Mini 4 Pro and the Neo, and it sits in between them as well. It shares the same camera used on the Mini 4 Pro, but is obviously very different in design. The Flip has been designed to be a bit more beginner focused, especially with the protected propellers and the Flip having the same no remote flying that is featured in the Neo. For people not wanting to crack out a controller every time they want to grab a quick clip, this is a great addition. The Neo is obviously much smaller than the Flip, but the image quality from the Flip is much better than the Neo. The big upgrade from the Mini 4 Pro is that it has full 360-degree obstacle avoidance, whereas the Flip is just limited to the sensor on the front of the drone. And the gimbal cannot rotate on the Flip either, which it can on the Mini 4 Pro. Basically, the Neo is a really affordable entry-level drone that can provide a bit of fun. The Flip is a step up when it comes to stability and image quality, but is a little bigger and more expensive. And the Mini 4 Pro is going to be a good option for people who are a bit more serious and want something a bit more professionally focused. They're all decent options though, it just depends what you need. DJI also announced the Power Expansion Battery 2000, a 2 kWh battery for remote power. Lastly, they released their new O4 Air Unit series, aimed at providing some unique features for custom FPV drone builds. The DJI Ronin 4D has received 2 firmware updates. This includes the introduction of support for 16:9 recording and output of 16:9 via the HDMI or SDI. It also added support to use 3 DJI Focus Pro motors on the 4D Flex to control the iris, focus and zoom of manual lenses. It's also added the ability to use the C1 and C2 buttons to control the built-in ND, as well as a few other minor fixes and changes. It's great to see the 4D get some love. Hopefully DJI will keep updating the camera going forward. Links to the firmware are in the description below. Rode have released the 3rd version of their very popular Rode Wireless Go series. Rode has a pretty large range of wireless systems available now. You have the Wireless Pro at the top, then the Go 3s, and then the Go 2s, and then the rest of their wireless options. The Go 3s and Pros are incredibly similar in design and features. They both have 32-bit float internal recording, a locking lav connector, a range of roughly 260 meters, and an intelligent gain assist mode. but the Pro does have timecode functionality, which the Go 3 doesn't. And the Pro is only £40 more than the Go 3, and actually comes with a lot more in the box that you don't get with the 3s. This includes 2 lavalier mics, a really nice charging case, and some other bits. So unless you like the fancy colours that the Go 3s are available in, I would really suggest just getting the Pros, as when you factor in these extra bits and the extra features, they're a far better value. While I haven't tested them side by side, I have seen people online saying the Pros also edged the 3s out slightly in regard to overall sound quality, though they're probably very similar. So yeah, if you can afford the extra 40 quid, grab the Pros over the 3s. That's what I would do anyway. Thypoch have announced that their new Cine C series of Cine Primes are now available in M mount, which, if you want the most versatile set of them, are the ones to go for, as you can adapt M mount to L, Z, E and RF mount with a simple adapter, so you aren't locked down into one of these shallower mounts. They also announced a new 21mm to go alongside the existing 28, 35, 50 and 75mm, all of which are T1.5. I had a look at the 28mm very briefly the other day, and I was shocked at how small it was considering their image circle and t-stop. I'm looking forward to checking these out more when we can. Hollyland have announced their latest wireless microphone set, the Lark M2S. This is a dual channel 2.4 GHz system that is aimed at the more casual or budget conscious content creator and user. That's because it costs just £140 for the set, and you can't use a separate mic with it. You can only use the built-in mics on the transmitters. I'm sure, like me, you have noticed the insane amount of people using one of the many affordable wireless mic sets clipped directly onto a subject with no lav mic, just using the TX's built-in mics. This results in some really awkward looking mic placements, and that's where the unique design of the Lark M2S comes in. It's designed to be super small, but also the capture of the mic is separate to the TX, and this means that it can be clipped on much more discreetly. Unfortunately, there's no internal recording, just output, but you'll be able to feed the audio out via 3.5mm jack or USB-C, which should cover the users of this system. Tilta has announced a bunch of new products. First off, you have the VT03 fluid head tripod, which looks like a tiny little system for tabletop use. You then have 3 new cage systems, one for the ZV-E10 II, one for the Pixis, and one for the C80, which we actually managed to check out earlier this month. Tilta's ecosystems are always pretty comprehensive, so these could be worth checking out if you've recently grabbed a Pixis or a C80. Adobe has released some new beta versions of Premiere, After Effects, and Media Encoder, which adds hardware acceleration for Canon Cinema Raw Light, which I cannot express to you how excited I am for. We shoot Cinema Raw Light all the time, and playback has never been as good as something like Red's R3D, but with this, performance should improve massively. Fingers crossed this is the case when we get a chance to fully test it. They also announced new updates for Premiere and After Effects for Frame.io. Lacie have announced 2 new external SSDs, the Rugged Pro 5 in a 2 and 4TB variant, and these use the new Thunderbolt 5 standard, which has a bandwidth double that of Thunderbolt 4 of 80 gigabits per second. This means it can provide some impressive speeds. We actually used the previous generation of these on some of our projects, and they perform well but are limited to around 2,800 megabytes per second, whereas these new ones will reach speeds of up to 6,700 megabytes read and 5,300 megabytes write in theory. They are also IP68 rated and are very robust and compact drives. For some of our projects like the Cine 12K video from last year, we're pretty bottlenecked by our SSD speeds, so I'm excited to see some Thunderbolt 5 solutions come out, and these paired with one of Apple's latest M4 series of Macs might solve some of our editing slowdowns. Right, let's get into our quickfire honourable mentions. Links to details about these are in the description below. 3D Film Parts have created the Ronin gimbal dock for mounting your Ronin RS3 or RS4 to a range of different carts. Axoon have introduced their new top-rig Canon BPA battery plate, which can be used as a fast charger and power distribution via USB or DTAP, and it looks like it's going to be decently affordable. Anton Bauer have announced their new Eden battery system. Bebob have released their Green Cube, a 500 watt block battery with a range of features and outputs. Birddog released their KBD PGZ controller. Blazar have discontinued their blue and amber version of the Remus lenses. Their Apex autofocus lens is now available to pre-order, and they have released an update to improve the performance of that lens as well. Bright Tangerine have announced a new series of their drumsticks rods and a new universal top handle. Flanders have announced the DM242, a 1080p 24-inch color critical production monitor. Godox have announced their Cube C wireless mic set, as well as the NOLED M60R and M60 by LED fixtures. IBE Optics have added a 24mm t2.9 to their Raptor line of macro cine lenses. Insta360 announced the Connect AI camera bar and Flow 2 Pro gimbal for smartphones. Kinefinity have released a HDMI version of their Eagle viewfinder. Kipon announced a series of 0.62 focal reducers, co-developed with Modulate, and an LPL to LPL 1.65 times rear anamorphic adapter for the signature primes. Condor Blue have shown off their new set of rigging for the Canon C400. Leica released the SL3S, a 24.6 megapixel full-frame mirrorless camera. Nanlite have announced both the Rapid 90 and Rapid 120 parabolic softbox systems, which look to speed up how fast you can use the softboxes, and the FC120C, a sub £300 120 watt full colour LED cob fixture, which looks decently featured for its price. Obspot announced two new webcams, the Tiny SE and the Meet SE. Pergear announced a new 12mm f2 for APS-C mirrorless cameras. Phantom have announced the TZ2110 camera. This features a 1280x800 BSI sensor that can shoot 21,000 frames per second at its native resolution and up to 483,330 at 640x64. This camera has mainly been designed for motion analysis research, and it certainly does look very impressive. Portkeys have released new firmware for the BM53WR, which adds camera control for ARRI and Nikon cameras. Sadly, Rhino Camera Gear has closed down. Shure have launched their new MV7i mic, which has clearly been inspired by their SM7B, but this one features a built-in audio interface and XLR TRX combo socket, which should make it incredibly versatile for on-the-go podcasts and productions. Sigma have released a 16mm f1.4 and 23mm f1.4 in their contemporary series for APS-C RF mount cameras. Sony has released new firmware for a few of their mirrorless cameras. Squip released the Volta modular block battery. Teradek and Wooden Camera have released a range of accessories designed around the Fujinon 25-1000 box lens. Think Tank have released two new roller airport bags. Tokina have announced two new focal lengths for their Vista P series of lenses, a 21 and 29mm, both of which are t1.5. Viltrox announced their new AF 35mm f1.7 APS-C lens and their new E to Z mount AF adapter, which looks really well priced. Vislink announced the Dragonfly V HEVC wireless video transmitter. Vocas has released a few accessories for the C80. And lastly, Zilmoose has announced their Aura series of 2x Super 35 anamorphic lenses. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. And I promise, if you subscribe ready for next month's quick kit, it won't be this long. Anyway, let us know if you have any questions or anything in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.